Hello, hello. How do you hear me? Good? How was lunch? Was it good? Was there any lunch? So before we hit 13:20 exactly, how many of you are admins, databases admins? Good, not so many. So databases developers or users of databases? Anyhow? Better, great. So who uses MySQL in any version? And who of you uses MySQL in version less than 5.5? Good, good for you. Who uses MariaDB? Not so many. I'm kind of disappointed. And who uses Postgres? Great. And who uses Postgres in lower version than 9.2? And lower version than 9.0, 8 something? Oh. Okay, we almost hit 13:20, where we are supposed to start. So welcome, everybody. My name is Honza Horák. I'm kind of responsible for keeping databases in a good shape in Fedora and also Red Hat Enterprise Linux. A bit involved in Fedora community and a bit also in CentOS. This is Jozef Mlích, my colleague. He's responsible for keeping especially Postgres in a good shape in software collections. And today we would like to introduce you some new features in SQL and convince you that SQL is really not dead yet, and it won't be in the future. So this is what we are going to speak about. There is no SQLite because it's kind of a bit different database. So we will just cover these major SQL databases, and we will describe what Galera is for those who don't know it. And first, let me introduce why I think SQL won't die. So even though the world is changing and applications are developed in an agile style, like we need to beat the time to market, we need to have first concept and working application in months or even weeks, not in years, like it was in the history. So we don't actually have much time to define data models precisely. So yeah, we kind of need to also handle the cloud challenges, like handling failover quickly and automatically, replicate to offer high availability and scale in the cloud environment. So sometimes it really means end of waterfalls development process, and in that cases it's good to have some new databases by hand, and these databases usually are called NoSQL databases that offer some new way of how to develop applications in the rapid way. For example, MongoDB, it doesn't use any data structure or doesn't require data structure. You can just store any JSON document into the collection, which is actually like a table in classical relational concept. You can scale and replicate out of the box. You don't need any other application for that. And it also includes some kind of MapReduce model, so you can doing aggregates in cloud and distributed environment. And it's really the development with MongoDB is probably a bit quicker than with databases, traditional databases like with that use relational model, because you don't have to care about structures. You just give some data there and you are fine. This is the example how working with MongoDB can look like. It's really about definition of any data structure and put it in and you are done. But still, it doesn't mean that since now we can use NoSQL databases, key-value databases, or document databases for all the cases. There still will be tasks that really require relational databases. And I really like this polyglot persistence thinking, like, don't just choose one database in the beginning of the project. If you really have some complex project, it's totally okay to look at one task and say, okay, for this task, some MongoDB may be the best option. For another task in the same project, maybe better, relational database. So just choose database for the task itself, not just because you think this database is better. So every database is better in various tasks or various use cases. So let me just make a really clear, really fast overview. What are the new members of the SQL club? So the classic member MySQL. It was startup in 1995 and then $1 billion company in 2008, bought by Sun and later by Oracle. And in that time, some developers from MySQL just started to think like, what will be in the future with MySQL? So they were worrying about open source project, if it will be actually open source still in the future. So they just created a fork called MariaDB, and now it's like, I think, the most favorite forks of the forks, because there are a couple of more forks like PerconaDB. It's a fork based around Percona company, which is specialized on supporting MySQL deployments. And there are also a couple of other forks that already died or are not so famous. What about Postgres? Well, it's really true open source project, so there is no need to fork it. You can just join it, and it works. So that's pretty simple with Postgres. So let's look how MySQL looks, like some current status of MySQL. 5.5 will be supported. Well, the open source variant of MySQL will be supported until the end of this year. And 5.6 is also going to be supported like for 5 years. So I think it's a good time to start to switch to 5.6 if you haven't done so yet. What I see, well, from the maintenance point of view, like a problem is that MySQL upstream just doesn't provide any information about security vulnerabilities. So it works like this. They release some minor fixes or minor versions of MySQL, and once a quarter, they just say, okay, this and this and this CVEs were fixed in this and these versions. So we are really not unable to say, okay, this patch is this vulnerability. So we are basically not capable of backporting any fixes to some prior versions. It also doesn't work much with the community anymore, because it's basically moving to MariaDB, at least from my point of view. So I mostly take MySQL like open source product, not much open source project anymore. But there was a question mark with 2015, and that's because when Oracle acquired Sun, it was promised that MySQL will stay open source until the end of 2014 or so. So my question, when I talked to Oracle guys 1 week back on FOSDEM, was what will happen with MySQL in the future? Well, you don't need to give any guarantee now. and he's just said, okay, you shouldn't be cared, so we won't close it more. So we can just believe him. Yeah, I hope so. I hope it will stay at least in this shape, even in the future. So MariaDB, my favorite one, fork. We switched to MariaDB in Fedora and also in Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7. It was a drop-in replacement until 5.5. So what it means, when you had MySQL in 5.5 version, you could just install MariaDB 5.5 and it really worked. I saw only 2 really small bug fixes and which fixed some issue in MariaDB and which actually worked fine with MySQL, but these were really small things, but the compatibility was fantastic in this sense. But MariaDB guys, developers, they didn't like all the features that MySQL introduced in 5.6. So what they did was that they just backported some of the features. They even introduced some new features, and some features from 5.6 they re-implemented, even with a bit incompatible fashion. And just to emphasize this change, like so people don't have some believing in compatibility, they just switched the versioning scheme to 10.0. So what 10.0 means is like it's originated in from MySQL 5.6, but it's not compatible anymore. Well, not 100%. So in practice, you will still notice almost no changes, I guess, because it's the client server protocol will be kept stable and the same still in the future. But yeah, some features may be different. And what Galera is? So MySQL still misses the ability of replication in the scheme of multi-master. Like you can write to any master in the replication set. And company Codership came with a patch for MySQL and also MariaDB and introduced this patch and the plugin as a Galera thing. So it basically brings you the multi-master feature into MySQL or MariaDB. MariaDB, for example, also applies the patch and releases a separate tarball for their versions. So that's great. So let's look at the features of MySQL 5.5. In 5.5, there was a big change in default engine, which became InnoDB. It used to be MyISAM in previous versions, and InnoDB is default now. One of the biggest features also was semi-synchronous replication. So basically, master doesn't need to wait for all slave servers to acknowledge. Well, it can continue when at least one server acknowledges. Replication heartbeat is not heartbleed, don't mistaken. This is about checking the master status from slave server. So the failover strategy may begin really fast, like even 1 second after master is down, the slave can acknowledge, well, like the master is down, so he can start failovering. Performance schema, what is it? I can show it in the real example. You can just see some background, what happens in the daemon. And if someone wants to work with this, he can, for example, tune some options like buffer sizes and these daemon settings. And then what it brings also is a opportunity to look into the code, really, and, for example, provide a patch for fixing some performance issue. So this brings like a new tool to look into the daemon, like into the deep background. Yeah, in every version of MySQL there are a couple of performance and scalability improvements, of course. So yeah, that's actually true also for 5.6. And there are a couple of it I would like to mention specifically, like index cognition condition pushdown, which actually means that if you have where clause in SQL query, it is now pushed into the engine itself. So the engine doesn't have to return all the rows, and the daemon doesn't have to do the filtering. With this feature, engines can do the filtering, and it's more effectively. So multi-range read allows much faster reading on classical hard drive because it reads bigger amounts of data, which is faster on classical hard disk drives. And file sort optimization should help you in performance if you use order and limit in one query. Then there is one great feature which I really like, InnoDB full text search. Who missed a feature of full text search in InnoDB? Well, I really expect it to be there like 5 years back, so this is a really great feature. Multi-threaded slaves, it seems like something that also should be here like forever, but well, what it means in practice now that slave can use all the cores or all the threads on the server is that, well, maybe even I can describe the opposite state like it was in 5.5. So master could have like 16 cores, and he could do quite a lot of write operations there. And then when slave should replicate it, it did it in one thread. So what could happen, and what really happened several times and for many admins, was that slave wasn't able to run all the queries from master, so it was lagging for hours, for example. Yeah, it could really happen. Crash save slaves is a feature that prevents us to see errors like duplicate index on the slave. So I think some of you may know this error, so yeah, that should be fixed in 5.6. Global transaction ID is also quite a big thing because it brings you the possibility to fail over automatically, because now position in the binary log is a unique thing, not only the number, like position in one log. So it will allow you to fail over more quickly. And memcached daemon inside MySQL, I thought like, okay, so there will be a plugin to access memcached data, but it's the opposite actually. This is example how it works. You have an InnoDB table, and from memcached client, you can connect to database and pick up some data from the InnoDB engine. It can be quite fast because it really just grabs the data and doesn't care about SQL and planning, like planner stuff and so. So it may also be quite handy. And a short look how it will look in 5.7, which is probably going to be released maybe late this year, maybe early next year. Yeah, also some performance optimization, and what quite surprised me was HTTPD plugin within MySQL, which brought you to possibility to access the daemon with REST API, and you got just JSON document instead of just like classical data. And let's look about MariaDB. So 5.5, as it was completely compatible. So whatever worked for MySQL, whatever I set for MySQL, it also works for MariaDB. So these are like additions. So instead of default engine InnoDB, there is a default ExtraDB, which is compatible, compatible engine with InnoDB, but it brings quite big improvements if you have server with a lot of cores, like real powerful machine. So the scalability on one server is pretty good in ExtraDB. As you know, MySum is not crash safe in default MySQL, but ARIA, which is also compatible implementation of this engine, is actually crash safe. So you shouldn't see the errors like crashed table needs to be repaired also. Connect, TokuDB, and Sphinx SE are new engines. Like you can use them instead of like InnoDB, for example. Connect brings you to a possibility to access another databases. TokuDB uses fractal indexes, and Sphinx allows you to use search engine things. So I see I'm a bit slower than I thought, so just a quick overview how the Connect can work. You can just access even text files, and you can work with them like with SQL commands. 10.0 features also global transaction ID, but this is another implementation like in MySQL. So that's an example of the feature which is not compatible with MySQL, for example. Also set of new engines, Cassandra, like client for Cassandra database. You can also something like the Connect engine. Spider engine brings you ability to use the database in a sharding environment, like you can create shards with the Spider engine. And also parallel slave, yeah. Maybe I should have mentioned that MySQL Enterprise uses also some features above the MySQL open source. So MariaDB fixes this for us and brings some of the features in open source version as well. These are like roles, audit plugin, or PAM plugins. This is also some short introduction how dynamic columns work. You can basically, this is one of the actually features that are inspired by NoSQL databases. You can basically have a structured data in one column and access like parts of the structured data, for example. 10.1 will be released quite soon, in hopefully April, as I heard in FOSDEM. So what it will bring is a new format for explaining, not that important probably, but again a lot of optimization for performance. And one maybe interesting information for you, 10.1 won't be actually supported very long because the upstream is thinking about the next versioning scheme, like all the even numbers will be supported longer, and so if you want to switch to something newer than 10.0, you should wait for 10.2 basically. Okay, and now time for Pippa.
Thank you. We will speak about PostgreSQL, and there was a talk planned 1 hour earlier, but Tomáš Vondra is probably ill, or I don't know why is he not here, but we will speak also about news in 9.3 and 9.4, so I hope we will cover also his topics. So, as Honza said, PostgreSQL is much nicer open source project than MySQL. Much more inclusive, and they also accepted some of my patches, so it is great. We have one major release per year, approximately. Currently, latest stable release is 9.4.1, which was released yesterday, and it is already available in Fedora Rawhide. Thank you, Pavel. Not yet. I've seen patches already and commits, so doesn't matter. It will be soon. So bugfix version come as necessary, so it came yesterday, and it is not so much spread like MySQL or the other databases. So let's take a look into 2011 on PostgreSQL 9.0. The biggest change was support for streaming replications and hot standby, and for that reasons they decided to name it 9.0, not 8.5 or 8.6. So it was big change, and beside of this, it brings also other changes, and I can speak about the all features, but it will take like 10 hours. So I picked up some nice or easy to explain features. So password check function or extension allows us to check complexity of password. So it is nothing magical. We have column trigger and when trigger, so we can call function when the column is updated. So it could be useful for anything. So every version is improved some kind of or some performance feature. So in 9.0 it was vacuum function. PGSQL is now default, and there was HStore improvements. So do you know what HStore is? Who of you knows? So HStore was introduced in 2006, and it is very similar to JSON. It allows us to insert similar kind of data. The main difference is the data aren't nested, so we don't have hierarchy of data. We have just sparse data, and I have few examples on that. In 9.1, we got received unlocked tables. Unlocked table is a table which is not crash safe. So if your server crashes, you lose data, but it's much more faster. We have SL Linux support in PostgreSQL. So I don't know if any other database have SL Linux support. No, most probably PostgreSQL is the only database with SL Linux from open source databases. 9.1 brings also the k-nearest neighbors feature, so we can do this similarity search. So it is shown on example query, so you can see the distance of searched word. We can in next version, it was introduced index-only scans, so we have indexed tables, but in regular scan we browse through all data, and it obviously takes some time. So from 9.2 we can do query over the index, and we can save some time. So it was very nice feature. We have cascading replication, whatever it is. So we can replicate our data in cascades. Finally, in 9.2 we have JSON data type. Unfortunately, it is just validation of JSON, so we can insert some column with JSON data type. We can insert the data into it, and it will validate the syntax of JSON. It will be better in 9.3. Additionally, we have range data type. So it is shown on that example. So it can allow us to create temporal databases much nicer. I think it's quite obvious from example. We have also space partitioned generalized search tree. So that's the abbreviation. So it means we have those four indexes, which can be used for indexing of space partitioned data. And HStore removed operator equal lower symbol, or I don't know, so that arrow, it means the PostgreSQL developers are not scared to remove some syntax to make it incompatible. So in new versions we have this new syntax and this syntax. So so they are not scared to remove something. They can do it. I don't know. So they are not scared to do it. Okay, 9.3. So almost the current version. JSON is usable. It means we have a lot of functions for JSON data types. I have some example for you. So we can query the content of JSON. We can get sub-documents, and yeah, that's it. We can work with JSON. Like it have a lot of functions, and it's a rich language. So we can create triggers on data definition language. We can create materialized view. It was one of most required function in databases, and it is if you know views just you can create view by calling create view from select from table. So you can have subset of table and you can have it in view, and those materialized view are so the data are physically copied to the table. So, and it have also ability to modify the original table. Well, updatable views. We can create custom background workers. So it is some C program which, I don't know, moves data or something like this. From SQL syntax we have now lateral join. Do you know what lateral join is? When we write the select query, we can add left join some other table, and we can add or we are defining the condition of join. But in normal left join we cannot use some condition from the nested table or connecting nested table and the outer table. I'm not sure how to explain it better, but I hope it will. You can read it in documentation. Well, I tried at least.
It's a limited recursive join.
Sorry?
It's a limited recursive.
Yeah, it's limited for recursive join. Thank you. So, and the latest version is PostgreSQL 9.4. It brings new data type JSON-B, which is not BSON, which it means it's storage for JSON data. It's binary, but it's not compatible with binary JSON format. So it's and it's a new type of column. It's good for indexing and those things, but it's not the format which is officially described. We have here a lot of improvements of performance of aggregate functions, and I don't have the slide with example here, or I'm not sure. Okay, this is one of them. This is new syntax. So old and new syntax for aggregate functions, or some of them. It is not just syntactic sugar. So it is also because of performance, and it speed ups the database a lot in some cases. In case of aggregates, we have some new features. So we can have ordered set, which makes no sense if we make sum or max or average, but it makes sense if we want percentile, median, or rank. So those are new aggregate functions, and it gives you much more performance. Okay, speaking about performance, here is a little comparison of MariaDB, MongoDB and PostgreSQL. So 50 million documents and comparison on speed, on speed of select, insertion, and on size of database. So PostgreSQL is much more better than MongoDB. So therefore it's not that, and we want to use it. Okay, so yesterday released version was mostly bug fix version. So 5 CVEs, and I hope it will be in Fedora soon. So I was thinking it is ready, but so not yet in repository. So it is in testing repository. Log into Bodhi, give us karma. Please test it. And what about future? If PostgreSQL 9.5 should be here in the second half of year or third. And it brings a lot of features. Those are already committed into repository, so we have improved row level security, or it brings us row level security. We have new write-ahead lock. This write-ahead lock is the bunch of data which is sent to the slave servers for replications. And we have new type of index, the BRIN index, block range index, and on this slide you can see comparison of the index in term of size of the index, and it's obvious smaller index is faster index. So that's it, and we have like 2 minutes for questions, 1 minute for questions, so please ask. Also on other databases. Okay, if you have, sorry?
Actually, I have a question. What's the improvements for Galera for the multi-master replication? I mean, I've been using multi-master replication for years with MMM on top. So what Galera brings to this?
So the question is what Galera and multi-master replication brings to cases when comparison with the MMM, you said. So MMM solution, which is like one part before like the server itself. So actually, I'm not sure about performance comparison. Never heard it. Never seen. But I think it's a good to have it in the base database. So just you don't need anything else. You just do it with your database without anything, any other tool. Yeah. Okay, so we are out of time,
So
but we will be here available for any other questions if you will.
So you can write us email, or you can give us feedback.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.